This week's chapter proves that the tides in the final war are shifting. Not only that, but we get an appearance from a character that hasn't been seen for a while now. So today we'll be breaking down chapter 373 of My Hero Academia, titled Friends. A pretty ominous title. Outside the hospital, President Mike tells Shoji and Koda that he will go find Spinner. He also asks the heroes to hold the mutant army back. It makes sense that he would want to go alone. After all, Kurogiri is a part of his old friend Shirakumo. As such, President Mike must feel responsible for him. If anyone is going to stop and awaken Kurogiri, it would be him. Even without Spinner, the mutant crowd is rather rowdy. Shoji even tries to calm the situation. Unfortunately, it seems that his concerns fall on deaf ears. Admirable, considering they wanted to tear him apart only a few chapters ago. Meanwhile, Koda is busy restraining villains. Specifically, the spider leader from before. Birds continue to flank the area. Many of them are helping Koda with the spider villain. Now I will admit that it is good to see the birds are still around. I really like the idea of Hitchhawk birds. We don't see students use their quirks often, so seeing a super move from a student was a treat. Sadly, a lone mutant still has a bone to pick with the heroes. He sneaks behind Shoji, ready to strike with a weapon. The hold this liberation has on mutants is strong. Despite seeing the monster their leader has become, they are still dedicated to their lost cause. Shoji manages to notice the man almost immediately, but isn't quick enough to react. Instead, the pigman from before stops his fellow mutant. Both look terrified and heartbroken, which makes sense. They believed in a cause that fell flat and didn't deliver their idea of justice. Mutants are looked down upon and even attacked in quirk society. Following Spinner must have provided purpose. It also presented a light at the end of their tunnel of discrimination. Yet Spinner couldn't truly liberate them. He wasn't trying to uplift mutants. Rather, his actions were actively setting their movement in motion. Regardless, both mutants share a glance as other mutants stop in their tracks and watch. Everyone is dumbfounded, confused, and afraid. But regardless of those feelings, he still stood up for Shoji. In fact, Shoji is shocked as well. Everyone stands still until the pigman speaks in a wavering voice. "I don't think I'm making good use of my rage." It's a comment that harkens back to Shoji. He previously asked the angry mob if storming a hospital was a useful outlet for their rage. The statement itself was a turning point. It made the mutant army think about their actions and whether or not they were right. Everyone seems to be pondering what the pigman said, except for the spider leader. He shouts for the mutants not to waver. He exclaims that they are being intimidated and that they should follow their leader, Spinner. He also continues to vilify non-mutants. His scorched earth policy is that all those who have ignored our pain are our enemies as well. To him, there is no gray area. You're with Spinner's cause or you aren't. And if you aren't, you're a traitor. He tries to spur them on by asking the crowd to remember the violence they had experienced. It is clear he knows he has lost his angry mob, yet he isn't giving up so easily. Thankfully, the pig mutant fires back. He admits that he has been a victim of violence due to his appearance. Because of that, he reacted to the call to action. Simply due to the fact that there was an action towards mutant discrimination. The pigman genuinely believed that this movement, complete with a leader, would lead to freedom. His excuse is probably why most others are there too. Disenfranchised groups can only experience oppression for so long before rising up. Despite that, he acknowledges the doubt he has. He has seen the good in his fellow mutants and non-mutants, so why cause them harm if they aren't malicious to him? Why hurt others to satisfy a deep rage that originated from a deep pain? To him, they're taking out their anger and violence for the wrong reasons. They wanted liberation, to be on equal footing. Storming the hospital and following in Spinner's destructive path is the opposite of that. If anything, these actions would set back their liberation. It would paint mutants in a bad light. They would be seen as violent street thugs. Destroying the hospital would only play into that. His thought-provoking speech causes everyone to stand still, waiting on his every word. Though his words do not reach everyone in the crowd. A mutant we have seen previously speaks up. Originally, she was part of Spinner's squad in the Paranormal Liberation Front. She questions why they have stopped when they are in the middle of a revolution. Instead of listening to any heartfelt speeches, they should be marching forward to destroy society and rebuild it anew. Her extreme reaction does make the pig mutant second guess himself. He wonders if he should have just stayed at the shelter and said nothing. Was it wrong to even be there to begin with? He begins to cry as Shoji stands next to him, completely stoic. Then Shoji speaks. "The feeling that gathered you all here today was neither wrong nor useless." With tears in his own eyes, he explains that they have been left in the dark. The hero's compassion just didn't reach them, which has affected their community deeply and in the worst of ways. It is why they have the standoff now. This rift is the root of it. One hero does take Shoji's words to heart though. He apologized to the spider mutant for not noticing the hardships mutants faced. It's a quick moment, but it shows that society, and more importantly people, have the capacity to change. Right away, this hero is apologetic and holds themselves accountable for any harm. Meanwhile, Shoji continues his lecture. He says that while they didn't have the best ideals, they didn't give up. Their determination is what caused them to shine so brightly. So he tells them, let's use that light to change the people who hurt us. It's powerful messaging. Instead of using all their anger and resentment for violence, they can motivate themselves to create a better society. By using their inner light, their humanity, those who do hurt mutants will feel ashamed. Finding that common ground can create a bridge and burn the gap between mutants and non-mutants. Thankfully, Shoji's address does change the mood there. Rocklock notices and takes advantage of the serene atmosphere. He calls out for the heroes to move to the hospital. While quelling the mutant army was a win, there is still the issue of a quirked up Spinner running around. Immediately after this call to action, we switch back to Spinner. He has already torn through the research wing, having made it to Kurogiri. The destruction he left behind involves craters in walls, doors off hinges. It is obvious Spinner will stop at nothing until he frees Kurogiri. Sadly for him, President Mike is also there. After unleashing a rather powerful shout, Spinner is phased enough to drop his tape recorder. The attack also knocks him down. Unfortunately, the tape recorder breaks. This simple action also breaks Spinner's resolve. Without hearing All For One or Shigaraki's voice, Kurogiri won't wake up. Which means Spinner would fail Shigaraki, something he refuses to let happen. On the other hand, President Mike is on a roller coaster of emotions. Before him is none other than his childhood friend Shirakumo in the body of a villain. He wonders if Shirakumo is still in there. Could he still reach his friend? Before he can even think about it, Spinner is growing more and more desperate. He sees Kurogiri and begs his body to move. His mind is struggling too. Due to his quirk and exhaustion, Spinner is stuck on the floor. It appears as if the heroes will finally catch a W. Spinner thinks back to the fact that no one followed him, nor does he seem to be able to wake Kurogiri. He used so many resources and kept pushing, yet fell short. However, this inner monologue shows how determined his mind is now. Instead of thinking in complete sentences, Spinner is only able to form very few words that lack any sort of structure. They are half-baked thoughts from a man desperate to reach his goal. Spinner does come to a realization during this. All he ever wanted was to follow Shigaraki, even to where he is now. Truthfully, it shows what Spinner is willing to do for Shigaraki. They have such a unique bond. Spinner was willing to gamble his health with quirks, all in the name of helping Shigaraki. While feeling sorry for himself, Spinner looks at the hand he kept from Shigaraki's original costume. Just as that happens, President Mike rushes towards Kurogiri. He thinks back to the hero's original plan, which was splitting up the villains. His inner monologue also asks Shirakumo if he knew about Aizawa's missing eye and leg. All the while, he envisions the three of them as they were in school. And honestly, this throwback does remind me of the now concluded My Hero Academia spin-off, Vigilantes. Here's hoping the canon content there will become more relevant in the main series, at least before we end things off. President Mike then asks Shirakumo to stay as he is. If you are not Shirakumo, I would like you to disappear as a memory. Sadly, a memory is the best way to describe Shirakumo. He has lost his sense of self due to his nomification. The last time he came out, Shirakumo was only seen for a second, and even then, it was only just a phantom of his former self. Just as President Mike is about to attack, he hesitates. He wonders if deep down, his childhood friend is still there. I can't say I blame him. Shirakumo's death was traumatic and only made worse by the Nomu process. President Mike has already lost so much, but yet here he is, willing to cut down his best friend, all in the name of justice. Suddenly, Spinner is able to stand. He thinks back to his previous experience with Shigaraki, one of them being a video game session. Regrettably, all the memories aren't happy. Most of the snapshots are from the last war. Well, at least when the League of Villains was recovering in a cave. This was a turning point for Spinner. Of course he would remember it. It was the instance in which he decided to become Shigaraki's hero. Though maybe it is more than that. Seeing Shigaraki like that was a defining moment for Spinner to realize his identity. Up until that point, Spinner was a stained cosplayer. Through Shigaraki, he gained not only an identity, but independence. He became his own person, so it is only right that he repaid the debt. With his pupils devoid of irises, Spinner says, "Let's save Shigaraki and the others." With Shigaraki's decayed hand, he places it in front of Kurogiri. Seeing this, President Mike immediately calls out for Shirakumo. his face painted with complete shock. Spinner seemed down for the count. His body was exhausted not only from the battle, but from his quirks as well. Regardless, the mutant was able to find the willpower to stand and finish his mission. Finally, Kurogiri breaks free and awakens. He grabs Shigaraki's hand, his face now resembling Shirakumo in a cloud of black smoke. And honestly, this is a scene I cannot wait to see animated. Kurogiri looks so menacing and ethereal. This matchup of Kurogiri and Shirakumo must be terrifying to Mike. In fact, he looks on as Kurogiri states, "I am the one who protects Tomura Shigaraki." So clearly, Shirakumo is not there right now. Only the Nomu, Kurogiri, is. However, his face is less ambiguous and resembles Shirakumo a bit. Is it possible that President Mike could bring out this aspect and maybe even save his friend? It's somewhat doubtable considering it appears that both are one and the same. Perhaps they cannot be separated due to being two halves of the same coin. Right after freeing him, Spinner collapses. It's unclear if he is alive, but I doubt that this is the last we will see of him. That being said, the flavor text does present some theories for the next week. Kurogiri joins the battle. The war reaches a new stage. Honestly, this line has me excited. We've waited so long for Kurogiri to rejoin the story, so surely his appearance now will be major. But sadly, we have reached the end of the chapter. Hopefully you enjoyed it as much as we did. If you have any ideas as to what may happen with this new phase of the war, please let us know in the comments down below. As always, I'm Slice of Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.